When I was a kid, my dad was a long-distance delivery driver, UK. Occasionally, he'd bring me along on his trips, which would usually be about 3 or 4 days. The procedure was we'd leave his at 4 a.m. to be at the depot for 5 a.m., get the truck and be on the road for 5:30. One morning, we'd left the depot in the lorry. Beautiful early summer's morning. We're driving along a country lane to get to the main road. Either side of us were hedgerows, about 4 or 5 high. They were level with the windows of the cab. As we're going, ahead a big black cat, like a big cat, leaps over the hedge on the left, darts across the road and vaults the hedge on the right. I've always thought there was a lot of truth to alien big cat sightings in the UK anyway, but actually seeing one was pretty cool. Sometimes wonder if it was just my younger brain exaggerating things. But I've asked my dad about it, again a couple times in the 15 years since, and he just says as well that it was definitely a big cat of some description.
I think a dogman was stalking me once a long time ago. When I was hunting wild hogs in the swamps of eastern North Carolina, I was about 20 or 21 and loved exploring the swamps where I lived and got into hunting wild hogs, 'cause it was a pretty big adrenaline rush. They are pretty aggressive here. I went into the swamp about 10 miles from my house, where there was trails on dry land, through a marshy yard, and it was heavily wooded. I heard something close by and stopped to look and listen and could hear something breathing really deeply and almost growling, then it stopped. This happened a few more times, so I changed direction to try and get behind it and pin it between myself and the water, but it changed direction with me. After about an hour of creeping around, I realized it was between me and the way out of the swamp. At this point, I'm starting to get a little scared because I don't think it a hog at this point anymore. I made the decision to get baked by wading through the swamp and water up to my chest. I think it tried to follow me but wouldn't go in the water. I eventually made it back to where I could get to my truck a few days later. I told my buddy's cousin about it, and all the bones and weird stuff I saw, and he completely changed when I told him where I was and said to stay away from there. I asked him why, and he wouldn't say anymore. Fast forward a few years, and I'm at his house and all of his family was there. And his uncle came and talked to me and said, "I heard where you were out in the swamp hunting hogs at. You're lucky you made it back." I asked why, and he said that's where the big dogs live. I asked what he meant, and he wouldn't say anymore. I hunted a few more years, but not in that same spot, and eventually started working a different job and got into other hobbies and also started playing in a working band, so I had not time for it. I completely forgot about that day until a few years ago when I saw a story about dogmen on YouTube, and I immediately remembered that day. I've since heard a lot of diff stories, similar to mine, and also heard of dogman encounters around and down the coast from where I live. I stay out of the swamp now and don't go in any farther than I have to if I have to.
This was last year in Bordeaux, France. I lived in a building that was going to be destroyed. So there were only like 3 apartments out of 60, with people in it, and they were far from me, in another branch of the building. I was sleeping in my room. It was during summer. Then I remember being woke up by something tapping on my window. When I looked at it, I saw something strange. I'm not native English speaker, so excuse me if it's difficult to explain. There was a shape, human-sized I guess, moving on the balcony. It was like in the movie Predator, when the creature is in stealth mode, or like in summer when on a road you see heat coming out of the road and your vision is a little bit blurry because of that. At first, being half sleeping, I thought, why the F did I put the radiator on? Every time I tried to close my eyes to go back to sleep, there was 2 distinct tapping sound on one of the windows, 3 different one. 1 I can see through and 2 I can't cause of shutters. It was like something was messing with me. And it was every time I closed my eyes. Easy to spot, because I was sleeping facing the window and not far from it. As I told you, there was no one in this part of the building. I lived on the 3rd floor with no trees or thing in front that can cause such a sound. Any 2 tapping were every time at the same interval. I started to be really scared when I noticed that the shape was moving in order to tap on different windows. It was so disturbing that I couldn't move an inch. It was like this for quite a time. Maybe hours, can't tell, was too afraid to even take my phone. When the sun was rising, I probably fell asleep out of exhaustion. I will never forget this feeling of dread and pure fear when I saw this shape.
My mom, brother, and I were driving over an highway overpass one night. A few years back, and this big black hairless creature jumped over the side of the overpass, ran on all 4s in front of our car and a few others, jumped over the dividing median but grabbed it with its front feet, ran in front of the other cars on the other side of the highway, then jumped down the other side of the overpass. This thing had really long, skinny front legs and very short back legs, was skinny, and when our headlights shone on it, it turned its head to look at the traffic coming towards it. Its face was creepily long, like a horse almost, or a big deer. It was just weird and didn't look like anything my mom or I had ever seen before. This was like 10 years ago, and I've been trying to come up with every idea of what it could have been. A manged black bear, some stange-manged wolf or black mane, coyote or something, but nothing looks like it at all. The head, though, is what messes with me. It was much too big and long for the body. My mom and I saw it and slammed on the brakes like other drivers next to us. We were freaking out trying to figure out what we just saw, while my brother in the back seat trying to figure out what happened because he didn't see it but saw everyone hitting their brakes and slamming their horns. This happened in Silverdale, Washington.
First one, I was about 12 and I was asleep. I don't remember the dream I was having beforehand, but all of a sudden I was in my room, except there was this black shadow in the shape of a man crouched over me, like they were going to sit on my chest and pin me. They grabbed my neck with both hands and started choking me, and I couldn't breathe at all. I gathered all the strength I had in me and swung my fist at its head, and I don't know if I actually hurt it or just startled it, but I woke up gasping for air and had bruises in the shape of a man's hands on my neck. My mom and I were the only ones in the house, and she took pictures of them. Not sure if she still has them, but it was scary as hell. Second one, I was in the same house by myself doing some dishes. I was about 18 at the time when I got hit in the back of the head with a lamp. Nothing around where the lamp was disturbed, and there was no direct path between it and me. Without slamming into other things, I quickly checked the house, and sure enough, all the windows were locked as well as the doors with the chains still on them. The only thing I could think of was I pissed something off in that house somehow.
Residual haunting in a house I shared with my coworkers for 2 months. It was a 2-storied house. Most activity was in the kitchen or the stairs. We'd feel a very intense and strong feeling of being watched in the kitchen. Our friends who would stay over with us at weekends would refuse to go to the kitchen alone. We all worked night shifts, but my shift used to get over at 3:30, so I'd reach our home at around 3:50. I'd quick close the kitchen door, if those imbeciles left it open, and run upstairs to my room and lock my door. After locking my door, I'd often hear rhythmic clanging sounds on the steel guardrail on the staircase, progressively getting upstairs. I eventually made peace with it because I was too tired to be spooked after a long shift. My coworker's GF claimed that she heard a light knock on her door once. When she was home alone along with the spooky clangs, I felt very strong female energy in the haunting. It wasn't a malicious spirit. I often called the spirit Auntie when I'd be too annoyed with the clangs and she'd stop. I feel it was the lost spirit of an older woman